This is Hot Walk Academy. My name is Mingjin Tong. Today, we're gonna make one of my family favorites and one that you can find actually at a lot of Chinese restaurants. So it is a Chinese classic. This is a beef sirloin cooked stir-fried with black pepper and yellow onion. So normally you would find it as black pepper beef. Let's cook. Okay, quick rundown of our ingredients. Of course, we're starting with, we've got 1 pound here of beef sirloin steak. It's got some nice marbling, but you can actually use just a lean cut of beef, works just fine. We're gonna do a velveting technique that's gonna make it very, very soft. Of course, then we've got our yellow onion. This one's a really big one. We'll probably just use about half of it. And for our garnish, we're gonna use a couple scallions to just kind of top it off. It's always nice when you're done and you have your dish to put on something green on top, just as a garnish to make it look nice. People eat with their eyes first before they even taste the food you're making. Other ingredients, we have here mi jiu tou, which is a higher level alcohol rice wine. So I like to use it because I actually like to have a bit of that alcohol flavor in my stir fry with that beef. It's gonna taste really, really good. The other ones other ingredients are just regular Kikkoman soy sauce. We'll use this as part of our marinade. I've got here my silicone cup, and I really like using this because it easy to pour from, easy to get stuff into, and we will use this for the slurry we're gonna add at the very end of our stir fry. And then I've also got here cornstarch, and this cornstarch is what we're gonna add to the slurry. You should probably just take about maybe 1.5 little spoonfuls. We'll get some water in there in a little bit. 2 other ingredients is fresh cracked black pepper. If you have the opportunity, always use fresh peppercorns and grind it just before you're gonna use it. That's what I've done here today as well. And then our very last ingredient is baking soda. Baking soda has the ability to tenderize your meat, and we'll talk more about that in a second. So let's go ahead and get cooking. What we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and do our scallions first. So just take off the dead ends and double that over. And what I wanna do is I just wanna mince it into nice little rings, and that's gonna be, again, for our garnish. If you kind of notice the hold I'm using for the knife, we call that a pinch grip. And I like to use that because it gives me a lot of control over my knife. All right, we'll finish that up here, and we just need a little bit of these scallions. We'll go ahead and get that into the bowl here for later use. And again, that's gonna be a garnish. We don't have to do too much more with that right now. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is our onion. So when you're using your board and your knife, one thing to keep in mind is you go from the cleanest ingredient to the messiest ingredient. Helps keep your board nice and clean. So for this particular cut, what I wanna do is I'm gonna remove the stem side of it and put that flattened side down onto the board. I'm gonna cut right through the root, and I'll set half to the side because I'm not gonna use this half. And then for this particular cut today, we want to cut the onion along the bias. It has a stronger ability to stay together under that high heat. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the root part as well. And now I'm left just with the part that I want to use. You can go ahead and peel off the skin, last layer of onion there. Just a real simple cut. Let's do your pinch grip with your middle finger under the blade and pinching the blade with your index finger and your thumb. Fingernails down on your onion, and let's do not too thin, but we're gonna do these little rings, again, just cutting the onion along the bias all the way down, moving your hand as it goes. And when it starts to get tippy, go ahead and just allow that onion to tip over. Again, with the pinch grip, finish up that cut. All right, all of these onions will go into our stir fry, and we can put that for now into our bowl, prep bowl. Here's the very last part, and we'll be done with our prep already, or we're gonna marinate still. But for our sirloin, what I wanna do is I want to identify, number one, the way that the grain or the muscle is growing. And we want to cut that grain because as we cut it, what's going to happen is we have less work to do when we're chewing, right? Also, because we're going to be tenderizing the meat with baking soda, again, the technique is called velveting. I don't want to cut it too thin. I actually want there to be nice thick pieces for me to be able to feel with my teeth. So I'm going to go ahead and cut down. Again, fingernails down, a pinch grip again, and we're going to do a nice thick diagonal cut on that beef. I'll hold one up so you can see it. I want my cut of beef to be about 1/4 inch thick. Now, normally for stir fry, that's a little bit too thick, but because we're velveting and making it nice and tender, you can go ahead and do it that thick. That's not gonna be a problem. In fact, if you do it too thin, it'll kind of fall apart. All right, let's finish up this cut here. And each piece should be about the same thickness so that it cooks at the same speed. Make sure you got a nice sharp knife. If you're struggling with the meat, it's because your knife is not sharp and you want to take the time, hone your blade, sharpen it before you use it. Okay, once all that meat is done, what we're going to do is we are going to marinate it. Just 3 basic things. Number 1, some soy sauce. You just want to put enough soy sauce to coat all that meat, and that soy sauce is going to provide the base of the flavor. But keep in mind, you are also using black pepper, and these 2 flavors go really, really well together. So I'm going to add a little bit more here. Then I'm going to add some of my rice wine. All right, and I'll give that a stir. Now, these 2 ingredients are now going to be soaking into that meat. It's going to actually act like a sponge and soak up a lot of it. You're not going to see that there's a lot of liquid left. But after you've got the rice wine and the soy sauce in, the next thing you want to do is you want to take some of that baking powder. This is about, I got about half a teaspoon here, and I'm going to go ahead and add that. And maybe just a touch more. Now, baking soda is a little bit tricky. If you don't add enough, the velveting effect doesn't take place. But if you add too much, what's gonna happen is that the baking soda will have a very strong and off flavor. So you gotta kind of test it to learn how much baking soda you need. Okay, once that is all mixed in, you can let that sit, and that can sit on the countertop or it could sit in the fridge, really up to you. The chemical reaction of the baking soda is raising the pH level of the beef, and when the pH level is higher, the protein is not able to stick together to itself, and when it stir fries, it's going to be very tender. All right, let's go cook. Okay, once you've got all your prep ready, I want to come over to your stove. I'm using here a 14-inch carbon steel wok. I want to go ahead and get that on high. So the way that this is going to cook, I'm actually going to cook my onions first, get them just seared. I don't necessarily want them to be tender. I don't want them translucent. I just want them in the hot oil, and then I'm gonna introduce my beef pretty much after that, okay? So it's gonna go hot oil, onions, beef, pepper, and then we'll do our glaze. So high temperature heat, I'm gonna go ahead and add some canola oil. I'll probably do about that much oil. That might be 3 tablespoons. I'm terrible at measuring. I have no idea, but that looks like what it is. And I want to go ahead and bring my oil to a very high temperature. In fact, for this one, I probably want to get my wok to a good 600 or 700 degrees. Let me take a look here. I'll get my infrared camera out, and let's swirl that here, and let's take a look. I'm reading right now at 550, 580, 600 degrees. All right, let's introduce our onion. I'm not going to introduce salt at this point because I've got quite a bit of soy sauce in that beef, and that's going to be enough for the saltiness. All right, just going to give them a toss to let them cook a little bit. And at this point, I want to go ahead and introduce my beef. And I do need a little bit more oil down there for the beef to cook in, so I'll add that now. And here's my velveted sirloin. I'll add that in. First thing you want to do, you just really want to let that sit for a minute. When you introduce your product in, don't be in a hurry to move it around. Let it sear. It might stick, but it will also release by itself, okay? From here, let's go ahead and agitate it, and we'll give it a toss. Now, the question might be, when do we add the black pepper? Keep this in mind. Black pepper has a very strong taste at first, but through time and heat, it will actually lose a lot of its flavor. So I don't want to introduce my black pepper too early, but I also don't want to wait too long. So about halfway through, when my beef is about halfway cooked, I'm going to go ahead and add my black pepper in. So I've got my temperature still at the highest it can go. Right now, I'm just letting it cook. Now, what you notice, if you look down in my pot, you don't see a lot of liquid, and that's a really good thing. We don't want to boil our meat. We do want to be stir frying the meat. So here we go. Let's give it another toss. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add my fresh cracked black pepper. And you can add as much or as little as you want. This is black pepper beef, and I want to taste that black pepper, so I'm adding quite a bit to it. And that fragrance is just amazing. Okay, the very last step, as I see my beef is cooking all the way through, the very last step that we're gonna do is we are actually gonna add a bit of a slurry. The slurry is a mixture of cornstarch and water, and I've got that right here. And what we wanna do is we wanna add it when the beef is fully done cooking. You don't want to add it any earlier than that because it's going to stop the cooking process. So again, at this point, I only want my beef and onion to be cooking until it's cooked through. I don't want to overcook it. You do the high heat to prevent that. And you notice how the pieces are nice fillets. They are not falling apart, and that's because we cut it so thick. You can also see the onions really starting to break down. That's because it's been there for a while. That's why we don't break it down before we start, because it has so much extra time to cook. Okay, when the beef is about this stage, let's go ahead and make sure that our slurry is ready, and we're gonna add that in. And not too much, just a little bit. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna make a nice glaze on our beef. All right. Let me get a plate for us. And here's your black pepper beef. We hope you try it. Hope you enjoy it, and I hope you continue to learn. And each one of these that you cook along, we hope that your instincts continue to develop. Thanks so much for watching.